learn to improve conversions and generate more leads with the video podcast at marketingoptimization.tv. Hi, and welcome to Marketing Optimization with Alex and Science. I'm your host, Alex Harris, and today we're chatting with Devin from UserZoom. How you doing, Devin?
Doing great, Alex. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks a lot for being on the show.
Of course. Glad to be here.
To get started, a lot of people probably don't know what UserZoom is. To give them a little bit of background, what would be kind of the high-level purpose of your software?
Yeah, definitely. I think, first of all, as we relate to optimization, I really like your guest's last perspective on optimization, where I think it was John McIntyre talking about how Einstein thought the most powerful force in the universe was compounding, the compounding effect, right? Compound improvements. And so that's great stuff, and we're big believers about that, at UserZoom and what we do. So how do we affect it? How do we try to do our part for the compound improvements? We are an all-in-one software solution. So we're going to help you test, measure, improve the user experience, the usability, the customer experience over websites, mobile devices. So we're helping you do remote, unmoderated testing of users. So not like in-lab testing, but we have software to help remote testing, where you're able to combine the qualitative feedback and video responses with quantitative data. So you're able to, with unmoderated testing, not sure how many of your guests are familiar with this, but unmoderated testing, it's great because you can get 1,000 responses in 5 days. And really, depending on what you're measuring, you can look at the high-level success rates, the high-level comments, the high-level efficiency ratios, combined with looking at a few users, a few videos, for example. So, I mean, that was kind of a long-winded answer, but we're trying to do our part in a lot of ways for the research, designing, and measuring of user experience and usability.
So let's dive into that optimization. You mentioned mobile and desktop, obviously, probably tablet as well. What type of platforms does that consist of that you're optimizing?
It's really all platforms, whether it's web, mobile apps, helping you do remote testing on all of your platforms. And so that's a real benefit. You could compare the experience of, alexdesigns.com on desktop versus mobile versus, an app if you have it. So you can test how the different platforms are working. Maybe you have prototypes on mobile. You can test anything on all of our, on all of the platforms you would like.
Very interesting. Yeah, I was going through the software, and as I arrived on your homepage, I got that survey. So it looks like you're doing surveys with the usability testing and kind of dialing that all in to overall improve, whatever goals that the client has.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
it's a very interesting thing. I mean, how do we assist our customers? It's like UserZoom's unique in that we're kind of an all-in-one solution, where traditionally you might have to go to one tool for surveys and another tool for card sorting for navigation, and then another tool for heat maps. Customers love us. People love us because we have the all-in-one solution. We're kind of like a Swiss Army knife. That's what PayPal calls us. So we have it all in-house, and we like to kind of break our tools down into three components, where you've got the usability and design stuff. So remote usability testing, what essentially this is you give users a task to do, and you see how well they can do it. And whether it's a prototype, whether it's a live website, if it's an app, you can test things in a variety of ways and get a lot of useful metrics back about the usability. So that's kind of the one component of the usability and design. Moving on, there's what you were talking about, surveys, and the measuring the customer experience, the market research. So what we have is voice of customer tools. So you can implement that in a variety of ways, but you could have a side pop-up tab, a feedback tab, an invitation layer to enter into surveys, and get that live feedback of organic users constantly. And then the last component is information architecture. So you want your site to move well, have people be able to find what they're looking for. So information architecture, this has to do with card sorting and tree testing. So, there's a lot of stuff going on, but the point is, depending on what you're trying to measure and design for, we have those tools in place, at your disposal.
Let's go into some of the definitions of a couple of things that you mentioned there, which the verbiage could be a little bit new to some of the audience.
Definitely.
Let's start with voice of the customer. What does that mean?
Yeah. Essentially, it's a survey with a more depth than a survey gizmo or survey monkey. So you're able to find out what users are saying, so their qualitative feedback, but really you want to figure out if they accomplished what they came to the site to do. So we kind of actually call it voice of customer true intent studies. So we're measuring, did they accomplish their intent? And what's nice is that depending on how people answer, so if they say, I am a marketing executive or I am a young athlete, you can filter down, you can input different questions so that there's relevant questions depending on what people say. So you're diving into the different segments more so than just a straight survey that everyone gets the same stock answers or questions per se.
Right, and you could probably identify that visitor's profile and maybe see their demographic information?
Exactly. So that has to do with profiling. So that's a great point. If you're a site and you're trying to optimize, you want to make it work for your different user groups. So how can you do that the best? You may get comments where it's very successful for one type of person, but maybe young people coming out of college are struggling with it. And so how can you optimize for everyone as much as possible?
And now let's talk about tree testing. Explain that a little bit, and how can a user benefit from using your software with tree
Definitely.
testing?
I would actually backtrack and talk about card sorting first.
Okay.
So card sorting, essentially, you may have an idea of what your site navigation could be organized like. You could have certain buckets of topics. So maybe you have a contact us page, you have an about us page, you have a products page, you have a services page, but there's different levels underneath those topics. You can input or implement a card sort into our studies and have people organize those topics based on what they think. And so that's just a good perspective. You may want the user perspective on how would they organize things. Let's say you already have a sitemap or you've already determined the card sort results and you want to test before you launch the actual sitemap. You instill a tree test where you test your site's structure and navigation by, you tell users, okay, try to find the contact us page or the services page with XYZ service. Can you accomplish that? And what you're doing is you're measuring how many clicks they're taking to get there, the time it's taking to navigate the tree, how many people are successful, how many people are not. And then you ask certain follow-up questions depending on if they're successful or not. So if someone's successful, maybe it took them a while. You want to ask them, okay, how easy was it to find this topic? Or if they weren't successful, what would you change about the tree?
So as a site is about to maybe get redesigned, they would use the tree testing to figure out the right way to improve the information architecture and the hierarchy of the navigation. And it's is it like an isolated experience? What's the environment that the test happens?
Great. So I'd actually love to show you a little demo, but maybe another time, Alex. Essentially, you could jump people into a study, just like you would see with a SurveyMonkey study, but you can combine the usability test with the tree test with all of this stuff. It's just a simple, in the browser study, essentially.
Oh, cool. Well, we can link to potentially a webinar or a
Definitely.
demo that you're doing that's related around this. This is really interesting stuff because people take it for granted, navigation and those elements. If you're not really fine tuning those little optimization pieces, you could be leaving a lot of money on the table. People get
Definitely.
confused. There's too many options. They're not sure
Yeah.
where to go on your website.
Yep.
So information architecture is key to any improving conversion rates in general.
Yeah. Definitely.
Let's move on to some of the details about some of those tools. You
Mhm.
mentioned qualitative and quantitative data. Let's
Mhm.
define that and then go into some of the advantages of using UserZoom.
Definitely. So, ideally, you would want to see videos of participants, hear their feelings, what are their comments, and so that has value, and that's why people research in the lab. That's why people pay thousands of dollars to do research with their users, with 5 or 10 users. That's great. We don't necessarily need to replace the lab, but we're a complement and sometimes do replace the lab. So what you're able to do is look at the qualitative feedback of 5 or 10 users, but also have a large sample size with your studies. Maybe it's 100, 200, or 1,000 people a day, over 2 weeks, whatever it is, and you're able to get their feedback and their usability results. So you could look at the larger trends of what's going on with your site. You could see, are people converting over to the shopping cart? Are they abandoning? Blah blah blah. Maybe there's 50% of users who are struggling out of a sample size of 2,000. That's a problem, right? And so you're able to look at the larger metrics on what's the average time people are taking on this page. Are people successful? What's their opinion? Their rating scale? Would they recommend the site to someone? So you're able to get those quantitative metrics, but also when you want to dive in and kind of put a face to the story, maybe you're presenting it to management or whatever you're doing, you want to put a face to the story, and that's where you get to zoom in and look at the qualitative data.
Let's touch on maybe one example from desktop, maybe e-commerce, and then maybe one from mobile, either apps or responsive. Let's talk about Clickstreams. Clickstreams seem key for e-commerce. You want to get them to that finish line as quick as possible.
Mm-hmm.
What would we learn from UserZoom, or what would be some best practice to improve those Clickstreams?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think one nice thing about UserZoom is the data filtering, the data aggregation. So when you're looking at clickstream data for usability studies, say you have a sample of 1,000 people, and you're giving them a task to buy a Seiko watch on Amazon, and you will get many clickstreams. They will go all over the place, inevitably, right? Um, what you're able to do is you're able to filter out irrelevant click streams. So maybe they go to Facebook for a second, or they go wherever. You're able to filter down to the necessary bare bones click streams that you would like to look at. You're able to filter down the different user groups. So like I was saying earlier, you're able to segment out the women from the men, the older demographic from the younger demographic, whatever it is, however you want to segment the data, you can really look at those click streams and how they're being affected by the user. As far as improving the click streams, I think you have to look at the larger research study. So you have to look at the success rates, and you have to look at the qualitative comments. You have to look at the ratings of the rating scale of how hard was it, and really, I think the combination of the quantitative with the qualitative results, you're able to see what pages are struggling, and people have an issue with the shopping cart, or they weren't able to input their credit card information, or find an FAQ page, whatever it is. It's really hard to say. I can't tell you how exactly to improve your site with clickstreams, but you're able to, on the holistic view, look at the trends and the comments and all the results to hopefully improve your clickstream to optimize it and make it quicker and simpler.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree. I was actually on a Clarity call earlier today, and we were talking about their e-commerce site. And I've always called it the ideal click path for the particular user. Clickstreams probably is a better word for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm always trying to improve where the people go. If they do get lost in someone's e-commerce site, make sure that they can get back into the flow so they can eventually check out. But if you're not really conscious of those clickstreams, then they're probably going to get lost and your conversion rates are going to go down.
Yep.
So, really defining where you want people to go on your website is certainly key to improving your conversions.
Definitely. And I'll add one thing. It's like what's great about task-based usability testing is if you want people to accomplish something, maybe there's 3 things ideally you want users to do, whether it's sign up for a newsletter, whether it's find the contact us page, whether it's buy something. You're able to set people on that path and see if they're doing it, and you're able to also bump them around to different follow-up questions depending on how they how they interact with the site. So if they hit a certain URL, you can bump them on out of that usability test and start asking them questions, right? So if it's something where if you just want open-ended browsing and you want to tell users, look, browse around our site for 3 minutes, tell us what you think about the shopping cart, and we'll ask you some questions. You can do that as well. So there's different ways you can kind of look at the clickstreams and the user paths.
Well, I mean, this is really key to any optimization process, because obviously you can shorter that clickstream, the quicker they are to actually get to that finish line. So definitely recommend keeping those maps in mind when setting up your website or optimizing in general. Now let's talk a little bit about mobile. I noticed that you have a gestures. Everybody who creates web apps, or excuse me, mobile apps, wants to improve the gestures or the actions that people take within their games or
Definitely.
other apps. Let's talk a little bit about gestures.
Yeah, so we have different. So we're testing mobile web and mobile apps, and for mobile web, I mean, you're able to. So when people go on their mobile device, whether it's a tablet or a smartphone, and they're in a UserZoom study, they're able to, you on the back end, you're able to see their gestures when they zoom in, when they zoom out, they click here, they click there, their finger. You're able to see their face now. So we just released that technology yesterday, actually. It's the UserZoom recorder. Pretty exciting stuff where you could just record the screen and look at their gestures, but you may also want to see their face. So with the smartphone or the tablet camera, you're able to see the gestures and the screen experience with their face and their audio. So it's something that, like you said, it's very important to, how are people interacting with the little details on the site? And is it mobily optimized for your smartphone? What are the load times? How is it working for the user? And that's something that UserZoom, like I said, we're testing all platforms, and it's really whatever you want to test, we're kind of here for you to help you out.
Yeah. And also what I noticed is that your software integrates with web analytics in general. Talk about some of the, I guess it's API calls to different analytics softwares that you connect with.
Yeah. So yes, we do integrate with different analytics platforms, Google Analytics and Adobe, to name a few. And essentially, what do you want to do with analytics? The idea of analytics is you want to find out who your users are that are coming to your site. You want to look at the general traffic information, like how are people getting to your site, how long are they there, where do they go, and this is the how and the what's going on. But we try to add the why element. So back to the voice of customer surveys, you're able to implement a survey on your site and intercept a certain percentage of users, or you have them opt in, whatever that is. And what you're able to do is you have that segment of users who are answering questions, who have opted into a UserZoom survey. And what you're able to do is you capture this subset of people. They take the survey, you track their behavior on the site, they go through the different experience, and you're able to ask the different questions. So hopefully you will be able to look at, you're able to lay their clickstream and behavior over with the larger subset of people and generalize. So what's going on for the small subset of people, that's probably related to the larger the larger group of people. And so we do integrate with analytics. We're not an analytics platform, but we try to help you back your analytics more with the why element.
Yeah. And I asked that because when designing or figuring out the right marketing, we do persuasion architecture to figure out the right personas and the users that are actually coming into the site, so we can ensure that we create the right click streams and they can get to the finish line. But what we also want to do is we want to anticipate what they're going to do, almost like predicting the future, predictive analysis, whatever you want to call it. But as a website owner, you should know what the problems that people are going to have almost before they do. So you can figure out those problems before they do, and then your conversions will go up because you're going to have the solution for them when they do make that click.
Yeah, definitely. You're completely right. User-centered design, that's the idea here.
Exactly.
And so we want to constantly iterate. We want to arm you with the tools so that if you're prototyping before you launch, you have some basic knowledge of what's going on and what are the issues. Then when you launch, you want to test, okay, are those issues handled? How is it working? And so you're completely right. It's really important.
Well, cool. Well, let's tell people about like your training and webinars that you do for this optimization.
Definitely. So we do have a lot of great content on our website, userzoom.com. It's a great resource if you're looking for webinars. We've got them monthly and sometimes twice a month. A lot of good stuff, whether it's analysis on analytics integration, or how do you optimize your site using tree testing, or what is the value you can get with mobile testing with UserZoom. You can check out our site in the resources section, and we have training and webinars and ebooks to go for it. Have fun with our resources.
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys are obviously the real deal. Some amazing clients: PayPal, Macy's, Google, Amazon. I mean, you can't really put a better bunch together. So definitely, you want to check that out. So let's close by telling people overall how they can find out about you.
Yeah. So like I said, userzoom.com, USERZOOM. We're going to help you zoom in on the user. That's our idea. Twitter, you can find us on Twitter at twitter.com/userzoom. Definitely just check us out. Drop us a line if you have any questions. We're always here. If you're just curious about getting educated on what we do, I'll say this: our industry has a few different names and hasn't quite hit the tipping point where people recognize the value and the necessary nature of this type of stuff. So, if you're just looking for education, we're here for you.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for your time, Devin.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Alex.
Thank you for watching the Marketing Optimization Podcast with Alex Designs. Please remember to subscribe to all of the videos in my YouTube channel. Thank you.